Okay, the final piece of equipment we're gonna need as we progress through our course is Odor. So I'm gonna show you guys how to put some Odor together and also give you some resources for pre-made kits if you don't wanna go through and make your own setup. So what we need initially is a glass jar, and it doesn't have to be a really big jar like this, but a glass jar that we're gonna be able to use to store our pre-made Q-tips in, and then our actual essential oil. So this is a container of clove. You can buy your essential oils online. Also, Whole Foods has a lot of the different essential oils. And remember, what we want to use when it comes to our essential oil is something that is more novel for our home environment. So if you use essential oils for anything in your home, don't use that smell as your target odor. You want to use something your dog doesn't have any experience with. So the common ones in the sport world are clove, birch, anise. Some of the other venues have cypress. So you can use whatever you'd like. This is clove that we're going to be using today. This is what Billy is looking for as you guys see her later on in our class. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually just take the heads off my Q-tips. So I don't want to leave too much of the middle there because depending on our container, we want something small enough to fit inside. So I'm going to take maybe 3 of my Q-tips and just cut the heads off. And hopefully they don't shoot across the room. That wasn't too bad. Whoop, there goes one. So we're gonna cut all of these down and place them into our jar. We're not putting oil on them yet. We're just getting them ready. Let's see. Okay. And this is about 10 Q-tips. So that's going to give us our 20 heads if you have a double-sided Q-tip. Okay, so we got our Q-tip heads into our jar. What I'm going to do now with these Q-tips, and some of this will depend on the strength that you want, what you'll find is essential oil is very smelly. In detection, it's what we would call a loud odor. So it moves through the space really quickly, and it's quite strong. So we don't need a lot of it. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a drop or 2, and that's going to run down the side of my jar here. So I'm done with that. That's all we needed. I'm going to put the lid on my odor jar here, and you see I have it labeled so I know exactly what's here if you're later on doing multiple odors. And what I'm going to do is just kind of stir it around. So my hope is that my Q-tips are absorbing some of that odor, but they're not going to be fully saturated with it. I don't want a Q-tip dripping with this clove oil, or that might be pretty overwhelming for my dog and maybe even for us. If we put a whole drop on 1 or 2 of these Q-tips, we could probably go around the room and smell it. So we don't want too much. So I'm kind of mixing it up here. And if you open it up and you feel like, whoa, that's really strong, you can just add more Q-tips, or maybe you smell it and it doesn't seem strong enough to you, you can add more oil. So it doesn't have to be exact, especially if we're just doing this to have fun with our dog. If you're looking to get into the sport side of it later, you will want to have some understanding about the different venues and the types of thresholds that they use for those venues. So we have our ready to go Q-tips now. I also want to show you guys some of the pre-made stuff if you don't want to go through making your own setup. So this is a kit I bought from a company called Canine Nosework Source, and they have pre-made Q-tips ready to go, already set up for a specific venue strength. So they have a specific amount of oil on there. And then also they have a lot of these little tins that you can utilize to put your odor in. So all sorts of different shapes and sizes. So if you get really into it and you want more options later on, you got like a camo one if you're gonna hide stuff in the grass. So there's lots of options and lots of different companies that sell pre-made kits like this. I have this one that we've been using. This is the one from, I think we just got it from Amazon or a company called Uline. This is nice because it's big and a very obvious visual for the dog when we're first getting started. You'll see that I'm wearing gloves as I set this up. The essential oil tends to be very sticky. And what I mean by sticky is if it gets on a surface, it really stays there. So if we're teaching our dog to be looking for this in our home environment, we want to be really careful that we don't end up with contamination where maybe we've spilled some of our oil and that's going to be there that the dog is smelling and not getting paid for it. Especially as we're starting, they should get paid every time they come into contact with that odor. So you can use gloves or really wash your hands and don't touch anything else in your home that you don't want your dog trying to tell you about. So that's our setup here. I also have this to show you guys. These are balloon dots, and this can be helpful later on when we're trying to make our hide a little more challenging. So I can stick this little balloon dot onto my tin here, and that's going to allow me to put this up maybe on a vertical surface or on my wall or something like that. So it's not just on the floor. I have something that can stick it to a surface and it won't damage your surface at all. If you put it on your paint or anything like that, it comes off really easily. So that's our odor setup. So we're ready to go with that for our later session when we introduce odor for the first time.